The auditorium lights flickered, and my voice cracked mid-poem, the microphone screeching as a single word flashed on the projector behind me, outsider. The crowd gasped, 200 students turning to stare, their whispers slicing through the air. Elliot Harper stood at the back, arms crossed, his grin cold as ice. He'd hacked the Poetry Club's presentation, twisting my moment into a public shaming. At 17, I was Amara Wilson, the black girl who dared to speak at Lincoln High, and now my truth was a target. My hands shook, but I gripped the mic, my dad's taekwondo mantra steadying me, redirect, don't destroy. I finished my poem, my voice rising over the chaos, but the word burned into me, a brand I couldn't shake. The aftermath was a blur, Miss Clara Nguyen rushing to unplug the projector, Jamal pulling me off stage, his eyes wide with fury. That was Elliot, he whispered, and I nodded, my chest tight. Each day at this Portland school pushed me closer to a breaking point, but I refused to crack. In the cafeteria, I avoided my usual table, the stairs too heavy, and sat near a window, sketching a new mural idea, a phoenix rising from ashes. The rumors Quinn spread now had teeth, Amara hacked the system herself for attention. Kids whispered, their glances sharp, but I kept drawing, my lines fierce. Mason's taunts grew louder, his shoulder bumping me in the hall, nice show, troublemaker. Riley's silence felt like a storm brewing, his gaze calculating, as if he was Elliot's strategist, not just his shadow. My refuge was a new activity, a podcast club I'd joined after seeing a flyer. In a cramped media room, I recorded stories of resilience with Sophia, a senior with a quick laugh and a knack for editing. Your voice is power, she said after our first episode, her encouragement a lifeline. Ms. Torres, the club advisor, saw my guarded heart, you're holding back, Amara. Let us hear you. She was right, I was scared to let my pain spill, but the mic felt like a chance to reclaim my story. Outside school, I volunteered at a youth coding workshop, a fresh outlet where I taught kids to build apps. Ms. Denise, the coordinator, a tech pioneer with a warm smile, shared stories of breaking barriers in Silicon Valley. Code your future, she told me, and I designed an app mock-up for my Phoenix mural, a digital version kids could interact with. At home, I practiced taekwondo, my kicks sharper, my dad's voice louder, you're stronger than their hate. But Elliot's war escalated. He didn't need fists, his power was in precision. A fake email, sent from my school account, circulated to teachers, claiming I'd cheated on a test. The principal, Elliot's father, called me in, his tone skeptical, but I proved the email was forged, my hands steady as I showed my login history. The incident left a mark, kids avoiding me more, their trust fraying. My podcast notes were swapped with a scrawled message, you don't belong. I rewrote them, my words bolder, but the weight grew heavier. Elliot's hatred wasn't just personal, it was existential. As the principal's son, he was a prince, his missteps ignored, his charm a shield. But my defiance cracked that shield. I saw it in his tense jaw when I passed him, his eyes betraying a boy terrified of a world where he wasn't king. His crew amplified his fear, Mason's aggression was reckless, shoving a kid who defended me, Quinn's lies painted me as a liar, Riley's quiet plotting felt like a chess move, his loyalty to Elliot unwavering. I saw Elliot's deeper struggle in a fleeting moment, his father praising him in the hall, the pressure to be perfect, to uphold a legacy. He wasn't just fighting me. He was fighting to prove he was enough, and I was the mirror showing his cracks. I fought back with creation. At the podcast club, I released an episode about microaggressions, my voice raw as I shared the auditorium incident without naming Elliot. Sophia added music, her edits amplifying my words, and downloads spiked, a few kids emailing support. I pitched my Phoenix mural to the art fair again, this time in person, but the art teacher, swayed by Quinn's whispers, hesitated, we'll see. I stood firm, my proposal sharper. At the coding workshop, I taught a girl, Lila, to animate my Phoenix, her excitement fueling me. Ms. Denise nodded, you're planting seeds, Amara. But the drama peaked one afternoon. During a podcast recording, Elliot barged in, alone, his face flushed. "You think you're clever, airing your sob story," he snapped, his voice low, personal. I paused the mic, my heart racing. "I'm telling my truth," I said, meeting his gaze. He stepped closer, his desperation raw. "You're tearing everything apart." Before I could respond, Mason burst in, slamming the door, the equipment rattling. "Enough, podcast girl," he sneered, and they left, the room buzzing with their threat. My hands shook, but I hit record again, my voice steadier, refusing to be silenced. That night, in the backyard, my taekwondo kicks were fierce, my dad's words a lifeline, "You don't need their permission." But school felt like a trap closing. MS. Torres caught me after club, her eyes soft. "You're not alone, Amara. Share this weight." I nodded, but the truth choked me. How could I explain being the only one Elliot saw as a threat, the only one who carried this fire? As I left, the parking lot was dark, footsteps echoing. I turned, my stance ready, and saw Elliot's silhouette, Riley at his side, their shadows sharp. "This stops now, Amara," Elliot said, his voice a vow, his eyes burning with something deeper than anger. Fear of a world shifting beneath him. My pulse roared, but I stood tall, my fire blazing, knowing this wasn't just my fight, it was a battle for every voice like mine, and I'd burn brighter than their hate. The cafeteria tray slipped from my hands, crashing to the floor with a clatter that silenced the room, my apple rolling under a table as laughter erupted. Elliot Harper stood at the center of it, his 6'3" frame towering, his smirk a blade aimed at me. "Careful, Amara," he called, loud enough for the whole school to hear, "don't make a mess." My cheeks burned, but I knelt to clean up, my braids brushing the tiles, my heart pounding with a rage I couldn't let loose. At 17, I was Amara Wilson, the black girl who dared to walk into Lincoln High in Portland, Oregon, carrying my dad's taekwondo lessons like a shield, redirect, don't destroy. 2 weeks in, I was still the outsider, my presence a challenge to Elliot's reign as the principal's son, his charm a mask for a fear I could see in his eyes, fear of a world where he wasn't king. I stood, tray in hand, and met his gaze, my silence louder than their laughs, but the weight of that moment clung to me, a reminder that surviving here meant fighting battles I didn't choose. Each day at Lincoln High was a gauntlet, a maze of glares and whispers that tested my resolve. I found a corner table, my sketchbook open, my pencil tracing a new mural idea, a tree with roots cracking stone, a symbol of resilience I needed to believe in. From their table, Elliot's crew watched. Mason, his broad shoulders tense, cracked his knuckles like a warning. Quinn, her sharp tongue spinning lies, told a group I'd been trouble in Atlanta. Riley, quiet and calculating, stared like he was memorizing my every move. Their rumors stung. Amara got expelled for fighting, but I kept sketching, my lines bold, refusing to let their words define me. My dad, a chef who'd faced his own slights, had taught me to hold my power tight, but the isolation was a quiet ache, a loneliness I hid behind my steady hands. I found a spark in the spoken word club, a new haven where my voice could breathe. Ms. Lena Carter, the advisor, her eyes warm behind thick glasses, saw the fire in my poems about unseen scars. My partner, Keyshawn, a junior with a poet's cadence, grinned after we practiced a duet, "You're a force, Amara." His words lit a warmth in me, a flicker of belonging I craved. Ms. Carter's feedback cut deeper, "Your poems are strong, but they're guarding something. Let it out." She saw the walls I'd built, the pain I buried to keep standing. Outside school, I joined a street art collective, a fresh outlet I stumbled into at a Portland market. With MX Robin, a non-binary artist with vibrant tattoos, I painted walls in the Alberta Arts District, their stories of resisting hate grounding me. "Art's a rebellion," they said, and I sketched a tree breaking through pavement, my mural taking shape. At home, I practiced taekwondo in the backyard, my kicks slicing the dusk, my dad's voice steadying me, "You're stronger than their hate." But Elliot's campaign grew sharper, his cruelty a calculated storm. He didn't need to shove, he used the school's online forum, a post from a concerned student, Quinn's handiwork, calling me a disruptive influence who clashed with our values. It twisted lies about Atlanta, and kids started sidestepping me in the halls, their whispers louder, some pitying, others cruel. My spoken word scripts were swapped with a note, "Go back, troublemaker." My hands trembled, but I rewrote them, each word a vow not to break. Elliot's anger wasn't just about me, it was about what I represented. He was the golden boy, his father's pride, untouchable, his late arrivals excused, his sharp jokes applauded. But I didn't bend, and that shook him. I saw it in his tense shoulders when I passed, his eyes flickering with something raw, a boy scared his throne was crumbling. His crew fed his unease, Mason's taunts turned reckless, bumping a kid who spoke up for me, Quinn's lies spread wider, claiming I'd faked my grades, Riley's silence was a shadow, his gaze like he was plotting Elliot's next move. I glimpsed Elliot's deeper struggle in a hallway moment. His father clapping his shoulder, praising his leadership, the pressure to be flawless etched in his face. He wasn't just fighting me, he was fighting to prove he was enough, and I was the mirror showing his fragility. I fought back with creation. At the spoken word club, I performed a poem about roots shattering stone, my voice rising as Keyshawn snapped in rhythm, a few kids clapping, their nods a small victory. I proposed my tree mural for the school's culture fest, a chance to paint my truth, but my submission was misplaced, Quinn's smirk hinting at sabotage. I resubmitted, my words fiercer. In the art collective, I painted faster, MX, Robin's encouragement, keep rebelling, Amara, fueling me. But the drama surged one lunch period. Elliot approached alone, his swagger muted, his voice low. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" he said, his eyes searching mine, almost pleading. I looked up from my sketch, my pencil still. "I'm just trying to be," I said, my voice calm but firm, the first time I'd spoken to him. He leaned closer, his breath sharp. "You're stirring things up, and I don't like it." Before I could reply, Mason appeared, slamming my table, my water bottle tipping over. "Keep drawing, art girl," he sneered, and they walked away, the cafeteria humming with their power. My hand steadied the bottle, but my mind raced, Elliot wasn't just targeting me. He was battling a shift he couldn't control, and I was his scapegoat. That night, in the backyard, my taekwondo kicks were fierce, my dad's words a lifeline, "You don't need their permission." But school felt like a tightening vice. Ms. Carter caught me after club, her voice soft. "You're carrying a lot, Amara. Don't carry it alone." I nodded, but how could I share the weight of being the only one who looked like me, the only one Elliot feared for existing? As I left, footsteps echoed in the parking lot, quicker now. I turned, my stance ready, and saw Elliot's silhouette, his crew behind him, their shadows sharp against the dusk. "This ends soon, Amara," he called, his voice a promise, his eyes burning with a desperation that wasn't just hate, it was fear of a world where I belonged. My pulse roared, but I stood tall, my fire blazing, knowing this was more than my fight. It was a stand for every heart like mine, and I'd shine brighter than their darkness. My name flashed across the school's digital bulletin board, paired with a photo of me from the spoken word club, distorted with a caption, "Amara Wilson, disruptor or danger." The hallway froze, kids staring, their phones buzzing as the post spread like wildfire. Elliot Harper leaned against a locker, his 6'3" frame casual, but his eyes gleamed with a victory he thought was his. At 17, I was Amara Wilson, the black girl who dared to carve a space at Lincoln High in Portland, Oregon, and now my truth was twisted into a weapon. My heart slammed, but I stood tall, my dad's taekwondo mantra anchoring me, "Redirect, don't destroy." I walked past, my braids swinging, my silence a shield, but the sting of that public shaming burned deep, a wound I couldn't hide. Each day at this school was a fight, a relentless push against a tide that wanted me gone. I ducked into the library, my sketchbook open, my pencil tracing a new mural idea, a lighthouse standing firm against crashing waves, a symbol of the strength I needed. The rumors Quinn had spun now had claws, Amara's stirring trouble to get attention. Kids whispered, their glances sharp, some avoiding me, others smirking. Mason's taunts grew bolder, his voice booming in the hall, nice photo, disruptor. Riley's silence was a shadow, his gaze like a chess player plotting 3 moves ahead. My dad, a chef who'd faced his own battles, had taught me to hold my power close, but the weight of their hate was a stone in my chest, heavy and cold. I found refuge in a new outlet, a digital storytelling workshop I'd joined after a teacher's recommendation. In a small computer lab, I crafted short videos about resilience with Zara, a senior with a quiet intensity and a gift for animation. Your stories hit hard, she said after we edited a clip, her nod a spark of connection. Ms. Harper. No relation to Elliot, the workshop leader, saw my guarded heart. You're telling truth, Amara, but there's more inside. Let it breathe. She was right, I was scared to let my pain spill, afraid it'd drown me. Outside school, I volunteered at a community radio station, a fresh space where I recorded PSAs about equity. Mr. Jamal, the station manager, a former journalist with a gravelly voice, shared stories of reporting on Portland's civil rights struggles. Your voice can shift tides, he told me, and I drafted a PSA about microaggressions, my words raw. At home, I practiced taekwondo in the backyard, my kicks fierce, my dad's voice steadying me, you're stronger than their hate. But Elliot's war was surgical, his cruelty a blade honed by fear. He didn't need fists, he used my influence against me. The bulletin board post, traced to an account Quinn ran, wasn't just a prank, it was a trap. A teacher, swayed by the post, accused me of causing unrest in class, her tone sharp until I showed my perfect attendance and grades. The incident spread, kids distancing themselves, their trust thinning. My workshop files were corrupted, a note left in my bag, stop stirring, outsider. I rebuilt the files, my resolve iron, but the isolation gnawed deeper, a quiet ache I couldn't shake. Elliot's hatred wasn't just about me, it was about power. As the principal's son, he was untouchable, his missteps ignored, his charm a crown. But my refusal to break cracked that crown. I saw it in his clenched fists when I passed, his eyes betraying a boy terrified of a world where he wasn't enough. His crew mirrored his fear, Mason's aggression was reckless, shoving a kid who liked my PSA, Quinn's lies painted me as a fraud, Riley's silence was a strategy, his loyalty to Elliot a calculated choice. I glimpsed Elliot's deeper struggle in a moment outside the principal's office, his father praising his leadership, the pressure to be flawless etched in his tense smile. He wasn't just fighting me, he was fighting to hold a legacy that demanded perfection, and I was the flaw he couldn't erase. I fought back with creation. At the storytelling workshop, I released a video about surviving bias, my voice steady as Zara's animations brought it to life. Downloads spiked, a few kids messaging support, their words a lifeline. I pitched my lighthouse mural to the Culture Fest again, this time with a digital mock-up, but the art teacher, influenced by Quinn's whispers, delayed, we're reviewing. I stood firm, my pitch sharper. At the radio station, I aired my PSA, Mr. Jamal's nod fueling me, you're changing airwaves, Amara. But the drama surged one afternoon. During a workshop session, Elliot stormed in, alone, his face flushed. You think you're unstoppable, airing your little videos, he snapped, his voice raw, personal. I paused the editing software, my heart racing. I'm telling my story, I said, meeting his gaze, my voice calm but fierce. He stepped closer, his desperation bare. You're breaking everything I built. Before I could respond, Mason burst in, knocking over a monitor, the crash echoing. Enough, video girl, he sneered, and they left, the room humming with their threat. My hands shook, but I hit play, my video's audio filling the silence, refusing to be erased. That night, in the backyard, my taekwondo kicks were sharper, my dad's words a beacon, you don't need their permission. But school felt like a trap tightening. Ms. Harper caught me after workshop, her eyes soft. You're carrying too much, Amara. Let us help. I nodded, but how could I explain the weight of being the only one who looked like me, the only one Elliot feared for shining? As I left, the parking lot was dark, footsteps quickening. I turned, my stance ready, and saw Elliot's silhouette, Riley at his side, their shadows sharp. This stops now, Amara, Elliot said, his voice a vow, his eyes burning with a fear that wasn't just hate, it was dread of a world where my light outshone his. My pulse roared, but I stood tall, my fire blazing, knowing this wasn't just my fight, it was a stand for every soul like mine, and I'd burn brighter than their darkness. The school's Culture Fest banner fell, crashing onto my mural display, the lighthouse I'd painted for weeks now a crumpled heap under torn canvas. A gasp rippled through the crowd, kids pointing, phones flashing, and there, at the edge of the gym, stood Elliot Harper, his 6'3" frame rigid, his smirk barely hidden. Accidents happen, he called, his voice carrying a venom that pinned the blame on me. At 17, I was Amara Wilson, the black girl who'd fought to belong at Lincoln High in Portland, Oregon, and now my art, my truth, lay ruined in front of 300 students. My heart thundered, but I stood tall, my dad's taekwondo mantra grounding me, redirect, don't destroy. I stepped forward, my braids brushing my shoulders, and began lifting the canvas, my hand steady despite the tremor in my chest, knowing this wasn't just an accident, it was Elliot's latest strike in a war I hadn't started. The day had begun with hope, my mural a beacon I'd poured my soul into, but Lincoln High was a battlefield, each moment a test of my resilience. I moved through the fest, my sketchbook tucked close, sketching a new idea, a mosaic of faces, each different, each whole, to replace what was lost. The whispers followed me, Quinn's lies sharper now, Amara sabotaged her own display for sympathy. Kids stared, some with pity, others with smirks, their trust eroded by Elliot's campaign. Mason's taunts echoed, his voice booming as he passed, nice mess, mural girl. Riley's silence was a weight, his gaze like a strategist watching a plan unfold. My dad, a chef who'd faced his own slights, had taught me to hold my light high, but the isolation was a knot in my throat, a loneliness I couldn't voice. I found solace in a new outlet, a youth leadership council I joined after a counselor's nudge. In a community center, I planned initiatives with Mateo, a junior with a quick wit and a passion for justice. Your ideas are fire, he said after we drafted a peer mediation program, his grin a spark of camaraderie. Ms. Rivera, the council advisor, saw my guarded heart, you're leading, Amara, but you're holding back. Trust us. She was right, I was scared to let my pain spill, afraid it'd break me. Outside school, I mentored at a teen journalism program, a fresh space where I guided kids to write about their truths. Ms. Aisha, the program director, a former reporter with a fierce spirit, shared stories of exposing bias in Portland's newsrooms. Your words can rewrite narratives, she told me, and I wrote an op-ed about school exclusion, my voice raw. At home, I practiced taekwondo in the backyard, my kicks fierce, my dad's voice steadying me, you're stronger than their hate. But Elliot's war was relentless, his cruelty a calculated storm. The mural's sabotage wasn't random, security footage, which I accessed with Mateo's help, showed Riley tampering with the banner's ropes, his movements deliberate. I presented it to the principal, Elliot's father, who dismissed it as inconclusive, his tone sharp, protective. The incident spread, kids avoiding me more, their whispers louder, Amara's causing drama again. My leadership council notes were stolen, a note left in my locker, you're done, outsider. I rewrote them, my resolve iron, but the weight was crushing, a shadow I couldn't shake. Elliot's hatred was a mirror of his fear. As the principal's son, he was a prince, his missteps ignored, his charm a shield. But my refusal to break cracked that shield. I saw it in his tense jaw at the fest, his eyes betraying a boy terrified of a world where his power wasn't absolute. His crew amplified his desperation. Mason's aggression was reckless, shoving a kid who praised my op-ed. Quinn's lies painted me as a manipulator. Riley's silence was a strategy, his loyalty to Elliot a cold calculation. I glimpsed Elliot's deeper struggle in a moment after the fest, his father scolding him for slipping in a speech, the pressure to be perfect carved into his slumped shoulders. He wasn't just fighting me. He was fighting to hold a legacy that demanded flawlessness, and I was the flaw he couldn't erase. I fought back with action. At the Leadership Council, I launched a mediation program to address bias, my voice steady as Mateo rallied support. A few kids joined, their nods a small victory. I rewrote my op-ed for the journalism program, submitting it to a local paper, and it was accepted, my words set to print. Ms. Aisha beamed, "You're shifting the story, Amara." But the drama peaked at the fest's closing. Elliot approached, alone, his face flushed. "You think you're winning, don't you?" he said, his voice low, raw. I stood by my ruined mural, my heart racing. "I'm just trying to exist," I said, my voice firm, meeting his gaze. He stepped closer, his desperation bare. "You're breaking my world apart." Before I could reply, Mason appeared, kicking a piece of my canvas, the crowd gasping. "Enough, art girl," he sneered, and they left, the gym buzzing with their power. My hands shook, but I spoke to the crowd, my voice clear, "This mural was about light. I'll paint it again, because no one can stop my truth." Applause erupted, Mateo cheering, a few kids nodding. That night, in the backyard, my taekwondo kicks were sharper, my dad's words a lifeline, "You don't need their permission." But school felt like a vice closing. Ms. Rivera caught me after council, her eyes soft. "You're not alone, Amara. Let us carry this." I nodded, but how could I share the weight of being the only one who looked like me, the only one Elliot feared for shining? As I left, I hosted a pop-up mentorship session at the journalism program, guiding teens like Lila, a shy writer, to pen their stories. "You make me believe I can," she said, her smile a spark. The local paper's editor called. My op-ed had gone viral online, sparking a citywide discussion. I walked home, my phone buzzing with support, but the parking lot was dark, footsteps quickening. I turned, my stance ready, and saw Elliot's silhouette, Riley at his side, their shadows sharp. "This ends now, Amara," Elliot said, his voice a vow, his eyes burning with a fear that wasn't just hate, it was dread of a world where my light outshone his. My pulse roared, but I stood tall, my fire blazing, knowing this wasn't just my fight. It was a stand for every heart like mine, and I'd rise brighter than their darkness. The school's auditorium fell silent as my mural was unveiled, a constellation of stars glowing on the canvas, each one a story of resilience that had carried me through the storm. Then, a single clap broke the hush, followed by a wave of applause, but my eyes caught Elliot Harper's silhouette slipping out the back, his 6'3" frame hunched, his suspension notice still fresh on the school's bulletin board. At 17, I was Amara Wilson, the black girl who'd fought to belong at Lincoln High in Portland, Oregon, and though I'd won this battle, his exit was a reminder that some shadows linger. My heart surged with pride but trembled with the weight of what it had cost, my dad's taekwondo mantra steadying me, "Redirect, don't destroy." I stepped off the stage, my braids brushing my shoulders, the viral hashtag stand with Amara echoing in my mind, a testament that my voice had sparked a fire beyond these walls. The weeks after the Culture Fest had been a crucible, transforming me from a target into a beacon, but Lincoln High was now a place where my light could shine. I walked the halls, my sketchbook close, sketching a new mural idea, a tapestry of hands, weaving stories of survival, a tribute to those who'd lifted me. The whispers had shifted, kids smiled now, some stopping to talk, their trust rebuilding after my op-ed exposed Elliot's campaign. Mason's taunts were gone, his suspension alongside Elliot's a consequence of their mural sabotage. Quinn's lies crumbled, her influence fading as kids saw through her. Riley's silence broke with a quiet nod in the hall, his words soft, "I was wrong to follow him." My dad, a chef who'd faced his own slights, had taught me to hold my strength tight, but the scars of isolation were still tender, a quiet ache I was learning to share. I found purpose in a new initiative, a student equity task force I'd launched through the Youth Leadership Council. In a community center, I led workshops with Nia, a junior with a sharp mind and a gift for organizing. "You're rewriting the rules," she said after we trained peers to address bias, her grin a spark of hope. Ms. Rivera, the council advisor, saw my evolution. "You're not just fighting, Amara, you're building." She was right, I was channeling my pain into creation, not just resistance. Outside school, I grew the teen journalism program into a statewide network, connecting young writers to amplify their truths. Ms. Aisha, the director, her voice fierce with pride, shared stories of her own battles in Portland's newsrooms. "Your network's a movement," she told me, and I mentored Zuri, a shy poet, to publish her first essay on identity. At home, I practiced taekwondo in the backyard, my kicks fluid, my dad's voice a guide, "You're stronger than their hate." The victory wasn't just Elliot's suspension, it was a shift in the school's soul. My op-ed's viral wave led to a school board meeting, where parents and students, fueled by #StandWithAmara posts on X, demanded change. The principal, Elliot's father, was reassigned, his bias exposed, and a new equity policy, shaped by my task force, mandated training and student-led forums. I stood before the board, my voice clear, "This isn't a patch, it's a promise." They signed the policy, my influence a tide that lifted others. Elliot's fall was a mirror of his fear. As the principal's son, he'd been a king, his cruelty a shield for a boy scared of a world where he wasn't enough. I saw it in his final glance at the assembly, his eyes raw with a truth he couldn't face, his power was built on sand, and my resilience had washed it away. His crew dissolved, Mason's bravado faded, Quinn's charm lost its hold, Riley's loyalty turned inward. I found a note from Elliot, slipped into my locker as part of his suspension terms, "I didn't know how to stop you." It wasn't remorse, but it was a fracture, a boy seeing his throne crumble. My fight rippled beyond Lincoln High, igniting a national conversation. #StandWithAmara trended, with kids in Miami, Denver, and Oakland sharing stories of exclusion, their voices a chorus of defiance. I launched a mobile app with Nia, a platform for student equity projects, its launch drawing thousands of users. The Journalism Network's first statewide issue, featuring Zuri's essay, reached tens of thousands, local papers calling it a new era of youth advocacy. My Constellation mural became a symbol, replicated at other schools, each star a story of survival. Ms. Aisha spoke at the assembly, "Amara showed us how to rise." I nodded, my heart swelling, but the cost of the fight lingered, a reminder that victories are never free. The drama crested one final time. At a task force workshop, I found a scrawled note on my chair, "You'll never belong." No signature, but Elliot's handwriting was clear, his defiance a fading echo. I showed it to Nia, her eyes fierce, "He's lost, Amara. You've won." I spoke at the workshop, my voice steady, "This fight isn't mine alone, it's ours, every voice that refuses to be silenced." The room erupted, Zuri clapping, kids nodding. That night, in the backyard, my taekwondo kicks were graceful, my dad's words a lifeline, "You don't need their permission." Ms. Rivera's advice echoed, "You're not alone." I was learning to lean on others, to let their strength carry me. I started a mentorship fund for Black teens in media, funded by the Journalism Network's donations, awarding the first to Zuri at a community center gala. Her hug, her whispered, "You changed me," was a spark of joy, a reason to keep going. As I stood on that stage, reflecting on my journey, I saw the lessons etched in every step. I'd learned that resilience isn't just enduring, it's creating, turning pain into power. I'd learned that silence can be a weapon, but so can a voice, and mine had built bridges where walls once stood. I'd learned that fear, like Eliot's, drives hate, but courage, like mine, dismantles it. Most of all, I'd learned that no one fights alone. Nia, Ms. Aisha, Zuri, and countless others had held my light when it flickered. Now, as I sketch my next mural, wings lifting every story, I ask you, the reader. If you were in a similar situation, with elements like social factors and racism, power and status, how would you approach it to achieve the best possible outcome? A week later, I walked into Lincoln High, my constellation mural glowing. A freshman, a black girl with eyes like mine, stopped me. Your app inspired me to speak up. Her smile was my legacy, her light my fire. I nodded, my voice soft, keep rising. As I walked on, my sketchbook open, I felt the horizon widen. A world where no one could dim our stars, and I'd lead the way, brighter than ever.